All right, I just wanted to go through number 3 with you from yesterday, how we can find the percent of numbers that are multiples of 10. So I mentioned in my description that we can find the percent of a number when it's a multiple of 10. When it's just 10, remember from previous unit that we are just moving the decimal place over. So again, if we were looking at just back to number 2, finding 1/10 of 5.7, we just move the decimal place over one spot to the left. We talked about that last time, and so we get 0.57. So always just moving the decimal place one over. So that's when it's 10. That's pretty straightforward. But then I asked you to read this gray section. So you can find percentages that are multiples of 10, which means in order to find 30% of 21, you can find 10% of 21, which is easy by just moving the decimal place over. And then we multiply that answer by 3, because if we're finding 10% and then multiplying it by 3, it's the same as finding 30%. So the example that they gave was 10% of 21 is 2.1. Multiplying 2.1 times 3, we get 6.3. So therefore, 30% of 21 is 6.3. So I'm just going to work through questions 3 with you before I assign the work for today. So you can take out your work from yesterday. Jump Math often starts the question for you. So we're starting with 10% of 15. Overall, the question is, find the percentage of 15. Find 40% of 15. So the first step is to find the 10% of 15, and then we're going to multiply that answer by 4. So 10% of 15, 15 has a decimal place imaginarily here because there is no decimal place there. And so when we move it one spot to the left, we get 1.5. So then we're going to multiply 1.5 times 4. And we've done multiplying decimals before. I'm just going to write it on top of itself like that because that's kind of the way that we're used to representing it. So 4 times 5 is 20. So we put the 0 there and carry the 2 over because it's a 10. 4 times 1 is 4, plus our 2 is 6. And then we looked at how do we know where the decimal place goes? Well, in multiplying, we count how many decimal place digits there are. Well, 4 has no decimal place digits, and 1.5 has 1 decimal place digit. So altogether, there's 1 decimal place digit. So we're going to have 1 decimal place digit in our answer. So our answer is 6.0. Okay, question B, 60% of 25. So first we're going to take 10% of 25. So that's 2.5. We're just moving the decimal place from the end of the number over one spot. Now we're going to take, because we want 60%, we're going to multiply this 2.5 by 6. So I don't like how that's laid out there because I want to do it on top of each other. So I'm just going to write, going to kind of ignore what's there. 2.5 times 6. And we're going to do this mathematical question here. So 6 times 5 is 30. So we drop the 0, carry the 3. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Then we count our decimal place digits. There's none here. There's 1 here. So overall there's 1. So our decimal place goes here. So overall, 60% of 25 is 15. And the last one, 90% of 31. So first we're going to take 10% of 31, and that's going to be 3.1. Now, because we want 90, we've only taken 10. We want to multiply this answer by 9. And again, I'm just going to set it up on top so we can see that. So 3.1 times 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. one decimal place digit in the whole answer, so we get 27.9. So 90% of 31 is 27.9. So double check those answers from your work from yesterday. Today, we're going to be looking at different ways of finding percentages. So if you turn over just to the next page there, more finding percentages. The example tells us that we are going to, we want to find 35% of 27. We know from our previous work that 35% actually means 0.35. So instead of doing, when it's not a multiple of 10, and we did the method on the previous page, we can just multiply the number we want the percent of by the percent, but as a decimal. So if we follow this example through, and then I'll do one with you, if we follow this example through, we want to find the percent of 27, and we want to find 35% of it. So we're going to multiply those numbers together. 5 times 7 is 35. We carried the 3 over. 2 times 5 is 10, plus the 3 is 13. So we get 135. The next, when we start multiplying by 3, we have a 0 as a placeholder. 3 times 7 is 21. So we write down the 1 and carry the 2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So the next number is 810. We add those together. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 1 is 4. And 1 plus 8 is 9. Now, how many decimal places go there? Where does the decimal belong here? Well, we want the percent of 27. There's no decimal places in that. And we want 35% of it. Well, 35% as a decimal is 0.35. So there's actually a decimal place right here. So there are 2 decimal digits in this question. So there needs to be 2 decimal digits in our answer. So we need the 4 and the 5 both to be decimal digits, so the decimal place will go here. And that's why 35% of 27 is 9.45. I'm going to do another one with you, or for you, depending on how you're working through this. So we're going to look at number 1. 45% of 32. So we want 32, and we want 45% of it. We know that 45% written as a decimal is 0.45. So we're going to just put our decimal there just as a reminder, and we'll deal with it at the end. So remember our multiplication here. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. When we start multiplying by the digit over, we have to drop a 0 as a placeholder. 4 times 2 is 8. There is no number to carry over. 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, and then we add these 2 numbers together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 8 is 14. 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. And 1 is 1. Now, how many decimal digits are there? Well, in the question, there's 2. The 4 and the 5 are both decimal digits. So there needs to be 2 decimal digits in our answer. So the 4 and the 0 need to be decimals. So So 45% of 32 is 14.40. So I'm going to have you complete a few more of these for practice, and then you can check your work tomorrow.